Okay, so we will get started. It says that we are live, so we haven't got anybody yet joining us, but that's probably because we've only just literally gone on there. Okay, so I'm going to say just hello because we have got people joining us now. So hello, everybody, and this is me. Oh, Beverly's there. Great. Hi, Beverly. Nice to see you here after seeing you this morning as well. I just want to introduce Shaheen. So Shaheen, you know, has, as mentioned in the marketing, recovered from back pain, many years of back pain. So I know you're going to talk about that, aren't you, Shaheen, in a little while. And your story, because when did we meet? When did you start our training?
I think I got in touch with you about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years.
4 years ago now.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so but that's towards the end of the journey, isn't it? So should we start near the beginning, and I just want to say hello first of all to, we've got Lubna, we've got Tomris. Hi, Tomris. So we've got quite a few people here listening in now. And let's just start maybe, Shaheen, with what was going on for you in whatever order you want to talk about it.
Okay. So, well, basically, I was 19 years old when I had my initial onslaught of the back pain. I was fit and healthy 19-year-old and used to, like participate in all sorts of sports and activities, go running and aerobics, and like work out in the gym. And when I had my first attack of back pain, I wasn't doing anything particularly strenuous. I was literally I remember I was just vacuuming the lounge, and I just bent over to move just an object or something, and I was just hit with this sudden intense pain in my back that really frightened me.
Young and fit, and I presume you'd vacuumed quite a lot in the past.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was just a normal everyday activity, and I was doubled over in pain, and I literally just could not stand up. And my sister came to my rescue because I must have screamed, and the family members were quite frightened for me, and I was extremely frightened. And I just recall that they had to call the ambulance to take me to hospital. So I must have been really bad. I was unable to walk, independently. I remember being taken in the ambulance to the hospital, waiting to have an examination by the doctors. But I didn't have any scans or anything like that. I just had a physical examination. And at the time, I remember being told that I had a slipped disc. I'd never heard of this term before in my life. And it scared the hell out of me. When they told me I had something called a slipped disc, I just had this image that I was, I cracked a bone in my spine or a disc or something. No. And then I was told to just literally go home and take bed rest for 6 weeks and take painkillers.
So this was quite a while ago. This is when actually they did think bed rest was good for us.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely. So it was. Obviously, I was 19 and like 13 years old. Trying to do the maths. It was a long time ago. Yeah, and I used to work. I had an office-based job, so I just took bed rest. That's exactly what I did. I was unable to function. I remember my sister taking care of me, assisting me to the bathroom, doing everything for me. I just laid in bed all day unless I needed to go to the bathroom, and I just took painkillers and just read and just tried to recover. And then the pain did ease off, and I did return to work. But I returned to work just having this understanding that I had a broken back, and I was the lady with the bad back. So I wasn't fully recovered, but enough to return to work. And I felt fragile, and I was only going on to 20. And then obviously at the time I was going through a lot of stress, but I didn't equate my stressful life with my pain in any way. That just you don't, if you don't understand how it can impact upon your health. So there was a lot of stuff going on at home, and and me myself, personality wise, I was taking on a lot of responsibility in the home. I used to worry all the time. I was overly responsible. I was like a second mum to my siblings. And I used to work in the family. We had a family restaurant, a family business, and I used to work there and do my own full-time job, and I was studying on the side. So I had a lot of stuff going
Wow.
on, but I just did not ever think that this is too much for me. And then I went through this, period of time where the pain would come and go, and I never stopped to think what's happening. Sometimes I would have like really intense pain, and other times I would have respite from the symptoms, and I never stopped to think, why is this pattern there? So then,
and were you, sorry Shaheen,
yeah,
were you able to get back to any of your exercise and sports that you used to do?
No, I was so frightened to do any
Really?
of that. I literally, in the early years following that initial attack, I just believed that my back was broken, and I was scared to do anything. In fact, for a long time, up until I recovered, I was scared to do jumping jacks, which I used to do so easily, and like running on the ground. I literally believed that this was gonna like be pounding on my spine, and it was going to start crumbling and things like that. So I stopped doing those, the usual things that the sports and going to the gym. I stopped for a few years. Right. And then I started to take control of my own back pain by going to see an osteopath. And I remember that, I'd go through cycles of treatment because the pain would come in cycles. So the pain would come, and then I'd be like, oh, it's time to go and see my osteopath. And then I'd have maybe 4 or 5, sessions, and then the pain I'd be alleviated from the symptoms. And, I was told by the osteopath, there was always an explanation. You've got tension here, you've got misalignment there. And then I sought out other alternative remedies. So I went to see an acupuncture. Over the years, I did many things. I went to see acupuncture, I did physiotherapy, I did herbal, I did everything. And some of the other patterns were like, again, I didn't think when we were on holiday, I didn't think, well, I don't have pain. I just thought, oh, my back's going through a period of, healing.
Yeah.
And this particular phase, I've done the treatment, and my back's getting strong now. And, when I'd have, maybe the pain would hit me again, and there would always be an explanation. I've overdone something. I've hurt my back again. I shouldn't have done that. Then I started to.
And it's such a common story, isn't it? And we hear that all the time now with clients. It's so common, but it's a shame. Real shame.
And the absolute fear was, as we now know, the fear was driving it, and I had no understanding of this. And I was really fearful. I used to worry about it all the time. I would believe that I'm never going to be the same again. I've lost my good health from a young age, and I used to bemoan that.
Incredible, yes.
So, okay, so going through those years, there were lots of things that happened as well. My dad went through a heart operation, like a bypass. There were things that happened at home. My mom had a nervous breakdown, and she was on antidepressants. And I've always, loved my parents. We all love our parents. But I realized years later that I would own their pain. It wasn't just that I, was empathetic towards them or worried about them even slightly. I used to take charge of my parents' suffering and pain, and worry about my sisters and brothers. If something went wrong, I would be like so affected by it. Like I said, I was just overly responsible, overly anxious.
And out of interest, are you the oldest or not?
No, I'm right in the middle, 3 older and 3 younger.
Right, just interested then, yes.
Yeah. And so all these things were happening. There was a lot of stress in the family home, and obviously now, having studied the work and understanding how things happen, I realized that I didn't feel safe. In reality, I was safe in my home, in my family life, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. I felt vulnerable.
Yes.
I came from a large family, but there were times when I would feel very sad and lonely, and retreat to my room and cry and worry all the
Mm.
time. And make prayers for my parents' safety. I just used to worry so much for them, and
Right.
everything that they went through, I'd just take on board.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I went through. I went back to university as a mature student,
Hmm.
and then shortly after my university years, I got married,
Hmm.
and there were issues there because I married outside sort of cultural expectations, and I mean, in time, family grew to accept my husband and love him, but at the time, it was a bit of a taboo um, sort of marriage that I entered into. So I had a lot of stress there.
Hmm.
And then I went on to have children, and I had two initial emergency cesareans. And then that was another whole explanation behind, oh, my back pain has now deteriorated because I've had my
Yeah.
cesarean operations. You probably come across this yourself as well.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I had,
Yes.
as a result of having the epidural injections in my spine, I again was led to believe that this was exacerbating my back pain. So then
Yeah.
I went through, periods again of, up, down with the pain intensity. Um,
Out of interest, did you have pain while you were pregnant? Because quite often
yes,
people don't have pain when they're pregnant.
I had a lot. I
You
had a
did.
lot
Right.
during my pregnancy, but I equated it with the fact that I had a slip disc, as I was told. So
Mm.
that was the reason for my back pain. I didn't think it could be any other reason. So that's what I believed, and that's what
Yeah.
allowed me to just sort of fear that. And then I used to
Yes.
have this ongoing fear that, is it going to be okay when I deliver? After
Mm.
having my first emergency section, then when I knew that I was going to have another cesarean, then I would worry throughout the whole of the pregnancy that, is
Yeah.
this going to be okay? Am I going to be
Yes.
able to deliver okay? Given that I've got this back condition. So that
Yeah.
obviously that didn't help as well.
So how long did all this go on for until you began to find a way through it?
So the other thing I forgot to mention was that in my 20s, before I went back to university and got married, I also had two car accidents.
Right. Hmm.
Thankfully, I didn't sustain huge injuries, but enough to sort of again convince me that I'd hurt my back further. So I had
Yes.
whiplash. I did have whiplash, as we sort of led to believe. Had all that pain that settled into my neck and shoulders and back, which now I
Mhm.
knew, and now I know, and now I understand were due to all the emotions that followed after the weeks and months following the car accident.
Yeah.
And then again, that just fueled the pain cycle for me even further, because for maybe 6 months, maybe even up to a year following both incidents, my pain intensity increased. And
Well.
again, that was another reason for me to believe that, oh, if my back was already injured, even if it started improving, now it's gone back again. It's gone back to
Mm.
square one. So that was another sort of just blow to me that I just focused on and feared. And then this all continued for a number of years. We then moved to Dubai, and that was another period in my life that led to huge amounts of stress. So we
Mm.
moved to Dubai. 13 years ago, I've been pain free for 13 years, and then just trying to put a date on it, but we moved to Dubai when Aisha and Ibrahim were 4 or 5 year old. Oh, I had Isa, who's now 16. He was about 4. So we moved to
Hmm.
Dubai at that time. So I had 3 young children, and I had a huge amount of stress to deal with. And I was isolated from family. We were reestablishing, we'd relocated. I was decided
Yes.
to homeschool because the schools weren't good enough. Me being a
We've got. I'm just
parent.
going to stop you there, Shaheen, because Lubna's saying, "Wow, that's a lot, Shaheen." That's even before you went on to talking about moving to Dubai and homeschooling and being away from your family.
I know. It's just we couldn't find. We started. We couldn't access the good schools when we moved. It was at the wrong time of the year. So, for me, it was like, well, I need to homeschool. I need to do it perfectly. So I set about doing that, and that was hugely stressful for me. And then I had the youngest. He was only like 2 years old. The other two, I was homeschooling. We were finding our feet. Initially, we had financial problems. So all this was, exacerbating my back. And the pain was now, this was the period of my life where my pain escalated to levels I'd never seen before.
Right.
And we started seeking help in the hospitals and the doctors in Dubai. And I remember begging one of the doctors to give me, I was on tramadol and it wasn't working. And I remember saying, you need to give me morphine. I need you to give me morphine. And they said, no, because we're not allowed to give you that. And
Right.
I was in such intense pain, I was desperate for anything. So I couldn't sit for more than 5 minutes. I couldn't do like physical activity. I felt like I couldn't look after my children, just normal things that one is able to do. I couldn't do these things. And then it wasn't until I gave birth to my youngest, Miriam, who's now 13.
So how many is that? Are we on? I think it's 5, isn't it? 5
no,
children.
So I had 3 children, and then Miriam, I wasn't planning on having a 4th, so just happened. So after my 3 C-sections, because you kind of told that 3 is the maximum, and like I said, I wasn't planning on having a 4th child. And then when I fell pregnant with Miriam, I was absolutely terrified that I'm not allowed to have a 4th cesarean. How am I going to get through this? So obviously then that was another factor that was fueling my pain. So probably that's why things got really bad during that time.
Yeah.
And then that's when I don't know why I had never had this thought of having an MRI prior to that, but it could be because I was diagnosed with this slip disc and I just believed that they'd already found something wrong with me.
And yet they diagnosed you without any tests.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know. That's crazy. So then I went and had this full MRI scan at one of the hospitals, and this is when they dropped the bombshell and said, right, you need to have spinal surgery, otherwise you are going to be in a wheelchair within probably 1-2 years at the most. So he explained that there was the sponge between a couple of my discs were like compressed, very compressed. There was fluid leaking out, and this was causing my intense sciatica and
intense anxiety after that as well.
I was just shell shocked. I mean, you can imagine, but when I left that after that consultation, my pain just went through the roof. And that's when I was told you need to have spinal surgery. But I was still adamant, I'm not having surgery. I'm not having it. I don't know what it was that just held me back. I just knew that there had to be another way for me to get better, even in spite of the fact that I had already been suffering for. This is now 20 years has passed, up, down, intermittent back pain.
Yeah. And
then I found a doctor in London who could give me, I think there must have been epidural injections that were, sort of promised to strengthen my core. At this time, I still believed that my back was very weak. So then I left to go to London when my Ibrahim I took him with me. He was 8 years old. Even just the other day, I was thinking about that journey on the airplane. I literally laid down. I was lucky to have some of the seats were empty, and I lied on those seats. And my 7 or 8-year-old Ibrahim, he massaged my legs practically the whole journey from Dubai to London. I know, I can't, honestly, such a sweetheart, because I had really intense sciatica and he was looking after me. And then I made that journey. I don't know how I got there in intense pain because I couldn't sit for more than 5-10 minutes. And then I did have these injections. I had about 4 or 5. A doctor in Harley Street. I mean, I think they cost about £150 an injection. And then there was no relief. Yeah. And then it was at that time when I was staying with my sister in London when I started to research about back surgery. Like, let's have a look into what it is. Does it work? The doctor had mentioned that I need to have it. And all I remember reading is horror story after horror story. Don't have back surgery. People were writing, we had it, then you have to have another one. You know, it's not necessarily true that you need to have it to correct your problem. People were saying that they were still in pain. That terrified me, and I thought, well, no, I'm not going to do that. But whilst doing that research, that's when I came across the work of Dr. Sarno, because obviously
Yeah,
somebody must have mentioned it. I know.
thank goodness.
I can't even. I mean, when I first read about Dr. Sarno, and then I went to research his work, some people say that they read about him, they read his book, they threw it across the room. No way, I'm not going to believe that. It wasn't like that for me. I read it, I cried and cried and cried. I believed every word. That was me.
Wow.
Because that was my personality, you know, non-confrontational, perfectionist, you know, putting everyone's needs before my own, always putting myself out there, lack of self-care, just overly ambitious, just
Yeah.
everything it said. It was like, that is me. This is the reason I've been suffering all these years, and I really did believe it.
Yeah.
And I was elated because I knew I found my cure. I don't know, something inside just told me that, yes, you are going to get better. Obviously, I was.
So you had hope. You had hope, and hope's so important, isn't it?
I think, Georgie, that is absolutely the case. At the time, I just knew there was. Hadn't done it. I don't know what. I didn't know at that stage what it was that I was going to do, but I knew there was something that involved, you know, that didn't involve having injections or having my back cut open.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so that's when I started to go into how I could then access Dr. Sarno's work and you know, start getting better. And at that stage, I was still in London, and then I couldn't. I wanted to go to the States and meet Dr. Sarno himself and have treatment, but I was unable to do that because somebody needed to go with me. So then at that stage, I remember finding out there was just a handful, maybe just 3 people that had, I think, either met Dr. Sarno or, you know, like were basically treating using his protocol. And obviously you were one of those. And there was another doctor. I was in London. He was somewhere at the edge of London, Surrey, I think. And I think there was somebody else maybe up in Scotland. So I thought, well, I need to get to where it's easiest for me to. So let's book in with this doctor in Surrey. And then that's what I did. I contacted him. I made an appointment. And it was really strange because I didn't know what to expect. I thought I was going to go and have some physical examination. But all I had to do was fill in this really intense questionnaire online before I visited him. And it went through, you know, like life events and things like that. And again, I remember traveling with a lot of difficulty on the train in anticipation, full of
Had you
hope.
read the book by this point? Any of his books?
No, I don't think I'd read Dr. Sarno's book. I'd just read whatever I could online, and I'd ordered the book. Yeah, it was probably about to be received. I must have ordered it by then. And then I went on the train, lying down again on the train, couldn't sit up, you know, really hopeful, but still quite fearful and distraught. And I remember visiting this doctor. We just had this tiny little consultation room.
Mm-hmm.
I could have just been in there maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And I just remember saying to him, am I going to get better? Can I get better, doctor? And he said to me, Shaheen, it looks to me like you have been carrying your mum's pain for a long time, or like all your life. And yes, you can get better. I mean, he had the confidence to, I don't know how, he had the confidence to utter those words to me. Mm-hmm. And I just broke down and cried and cried. I'm a person who doesn't like to break down in front of another person, but it was just such an overwhelming moment that I just broke down and cried in front of him and said, I'm so sorry, but I can't believe you're telling me this, because, you know, the amount of pain that I've gone through over the last 20 years, you know, I wouldn't wish upon anybody, and I'm just so relieved to hear this. Mm-hmm. And literally, he just had this short consultation. He gave me some strategies to start working with, booked in a next session with me. And by the way, I didn't attend any of the sessions with him. I just did that one. But I think I bought a program that involved 3, but I didn't go back. And then I remember leaving his room. My pain had dropped from a 10 out of 10 to definitely about a 6 out of 10.
So noticeable.
Traveled back to my sister's, you know, was elated, dying to tell her all about this. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, then I received Dr. Sana's book, started reading his Healing Back Pain. And then from there, it just went, from strength to strength. I went a few weeks after that, I flew back to Dubai, reunited with my family. My husband told me that you bent over with straight legs, because I used to squat because I was scared, to pick up Miriam, because Miriam was only a baby. I left her as a baby, and he said to pick her up. And we were just all shocked. We thought, oh my God, you're better, or you're getting better. You had the courage and the strength to do that. And then shortly after that, it must have been, I was trying to remember how long it was, and I was asking other family members, and they said you were better within 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And what do you feel was the main thing that was helping you with that? What sort of things did you do?
I would say that 3 factors had a profound effect upon my recovery. The first one was that I had now had an understanding of where my pain was coming from. So that dispelled a huge amount of fear that I had originally. Because I now understand that my fear was driving that pain all the time, just perpetuating that cycle. So now that I could, do away with that fear, that was huge for me. There was relief, there was hope.
So important.
I could now believe that I wasn't broken. I was excited that I was going to get better and be able to do things again. So that was huge. I did an immense amount of journaling. He showed me how to journal, and the journaling was a massive thing for my recovery. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but for me, the minute I put pen to paper, things came out I just didn't even know were there. Like there were blockages before. Yeah, there was a lot of emotion too. I was crying, I was feeling all sorts of things, but the release was fantastic. I could just see, and just through that release on a daily basis, my pain was going down. Every day I could see that it was different, and I was getting a bit stronger and doing, being able to do things that I couldn't do before. Yeah. And one more tool that I used in those early days was EFT. The doctor who I visited showed me, the tapping, showed me how to do some EFT. And then what I did was I just went on YouTube and I just put in some of the things that I wanted to work on, like sadness, grief, whatever it was. And I just tapped along. And I remember tapping along with a lady on YouTube and crying and tapping and crying and feeling really just feeling things that I'd never felt before. So I'd say in those early stages, they contributed, significantly to my healing journey.
So a complete change around for you, and definitely that, as you say, dealing with those fears and not having the doubts and having some hope was a big thing for you. And we've got people commenting here, Sarah says, gosh, talk about trauma. You went through a lot. Yeah. Hayley says, oh, Shaheen, I miss your wisdom. Thank you for all you did for me. Hayley Louise.
Oh.
That's nice. And then Nicole says she's going to recommend a friend watches this later because her mum's just had back surgery. And actually, if somebody's had back surgery, this can still help. We see lots of people who've already had surgery, whether they need it or not. At the time, it actually this work can still help because it's about looking at ongoing pain. Yeah. So your life completely turned around after that, by the sounds of it. And what did you start being able to do?
Yes, it did turn around. I mean, even just thinking back to small things that were just became a blessing now, like things that I'd been denied sitting for more than, a sustained period of time. I was scared to sit, and, a lot of people who've got chronic back pain will be able to relate to this, and that fear that sets in, and we now understand to be a conditioned response. I was so scared that I was convinced that I needed to have a special chair, which they bought for me at work. If I wasn't sitting in that special chair that I needed, oh no, I was going to get pain and it was going to be intense. And before I even sat, I told myself that. Then sure, obviously, to be sure, the pain would come within 5-10 minutes. So sitting was like I'd been robbed of sitting without pain, couldn't go to the cinema or anything. So that I could now sit. I could just, sleep in any bed. Again, I was convinced that I needed my own special orthopedic bed, so that to the point where if we were on holiday, I would have a lot of anticipation about, oh no, how's tonight, the first night going to be? I'm going to wake up with pain. And yes, I would wake up in huge amount of pain, not just in my back, my shoulders, my arm, everywhere. My whole body would be aching. And I was convinced, I told you that mattress, I needed a special orthopedic mattress. I think it's hilarious now. I mean, but unfortunately, this is what you believe at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so these things, obviously now I could, resume my sports again. I hadn't ran. I used to go jogging, in teenage years, and I stopped doing it in my 20s. And I was so excited that I could maybe try running again. So I joined one of those, what do you call it, couch to 5K.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I did feel like I needed some real practice with it. And it felt wonderful. I felt, I felt young again. I could lift things, because when I was in that crippling pain, and Aisha and Ibrahim were just 1 year apart, I was terrified of picking up the double buggy. So my sister used to always accompany me to, outings and say, don't touch it, don't, I'm coming to your rescue. I'd be like the lady with the bad back, and she'd be lifting my buggy up and back in the car. So now I do kettlebell, I'm swinging a 16 kg kettlebell.
And out of interest, Shaheen, a lot of people then struggle because their family are also protective. And this is about then moving forward. So when you started feeling better, then how did your family respond around you? Were they still saying, oh, be careful, Shaheen, don't lift this or whatever?
Well, initially, the people that had seen me suffer to the level that I did were just, I think they were just, I don't know what they thought. They were astounded. My close family members were like, we have witnessed a miracle, because you haven't had a back operation and yet, you're okay. So in the early days, they were, so overly cautious around me because they wanted to protect me. But then I think it's like I had to then educate them. No, I'm fine.
Right.
But it's not, my back is not broken, please. You have to understand that. So I think as I became more confident, then they they became more confident about my sort of wanting to just do things. Absolutely. Wonderful. Yeah. So I was able to do, lots more, the sports, just, playing with the kids, or just things that I was scared to do before, lifting, bending, all those things that you do very cautious. Yeah, because you're very cautious that especially things like you must bend with your legs bent. You can't bend over with your legs straight and lift something. That was for me massive. I used to think I couldn't do that. And, when you work with kettlebell, you do these like sort of lifting where now you can challenge all those myths that are sort of like flying around.
And there's some evidence that shows when you actually bend your back, you're stronger. You can lift a heavier weight than if you actually keep your back straight and use your legs. So that's
absolutely. I think over the years, I definitely was convinced that I had a weak core. So I did lots of yoga training and lots of, not just stomach. I had to always lay on my stomach and I've got to do those back strengthening, because then I'm going to be misaligned. My stomach's going to be, strengthened. My lower back's going to be weak. So I used to force myself to do all those. I mean,
and yet there's no evidence whatsoever that shows pain is linked to poor posture or poor core stability, for example. There's never been any evidence to show that. And I remember one of my clients from many years ago, Marie, who actually said that one of the things that she was so pleased to do, and she says it on the video, I think, that we have on the website, was that she could bend over and pick up dog poo. She'd take a dog for a walk and she could pick up her own dog's poo.
Yeah, but this is it. Everybody, I'm sure everybody has like, oh my God, I can do this now. And that's fantastic. Absolutely. I mean, and as well as that, then obviously then when I recovered, then eventually we relocated in the UK. And then I was like fully functioning now and stronger. And I was really excited that I was healthier. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I really did, because initially you just want to go stand on top of a mountain and shout to everyone, oh my God, this works. People that tell you you've got back pain, you want to help them. And not everybody's receptive to it. Some people are interested, others will just not really going to be believing what you're telling them. And I wanted to do all that, and I really wanted to reach out. So I did become increasingly passionate about wanting others, and that's when then I did approach you. I think I approached you, and then maybe for a couple of years I didn't do anything. I was not in a position to do the training, and then kept going back to you, writing emails saying I'd really love to do the training. Is it possible for me to be able to work in this field? And then I went and went ahead and retrained in a whole new career, and was able to do new exciting things.
Fabulous. Now I'm going to stop you there for a moment, Shaheen, because we've got quite a few comments going on as well.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it'd be nice to sort of go back to some of those. I think one of them, Julie said, who was the doctor, and I presume it was Mark. Is that right? Dr. Mark Atkinson.
Yes, it was Dr. Atkinson. Yes.
Yeah, and he's not still practicing. He didn't really practice much in this field. He actually emigrated to Canada, and then I believe he came back. But he's doing he does a lot of training, but still integrative health. Definitely working in this field.
Wow.
Gemma says, "I love that they said, or you said, they witnessed a miracle." And then there's been comments about that, and obviously we all know it wasn't a miracle. And as Peter says, of course it wasn't. It was just rational mind-body work.
Yeah, absolutely.
What we're talking about here, and how you can then help other people now with the work you're doing as a SIRPA practitioner as well. Iralee says, "You're incredible." We all know that, Iralee, don't we? She's incredible.
And you are too, Iralee.
And then, where was it? Oh, Georgina said, yes, I had back surgery and can confirm this work still helped a huge amount when the pain came back. And that brings us actually to a point that when the pain comes back, because I think people think that just because we are working in this field, that actually we wouldn't have symptoms. Whereas actually it's like, this is it's who we are as humans. We have mind and bodies that work together. We all experience stress, and especially this last year, I doubt that anybody will have gone without any symptoms this year. The difference is that there's no fear. So, like I know you've said that you've had odd bouts of pain that comes on, but then it's not going into the fear. It's actually treating it as a signal, and okay, what's going on? What do I need to address? And I know you've experienced that, haven't you?
Yes, Georgie, you're absolutely right. I think even though I did the journey, I'd say that, like the best part of my recovery, I did do that independently. I was just fortunate enough to be able to do that. However, it was after I did the training review to train as a SIRPA practitioner, I felt really empowered that now I had all these tools to impart to my clients. But first and foremost, I started to use those on myself because, as you say, life is stressful. I've got 4 children. Every day is stressful. And yes, I do have twinges. I might get, a migraine headache. I've had like bouts of pain. Sometimes pain, once it just recently, it struck me in my knee for no apparent reason. And I like to go running. And I rationalized, oh, well, I haven't fallen, haven't banged myself. And it was really bad. I could barely walk, and it just came on suddenly. But I used the tools that I now have. I didn't allow that fear to penetrate and to allow that pain to persist. And I fought it. It was uncomfortable. I didn't go running to the painkillers. I fought it. I did the affirmations. I reassured.
So when you say you fought it, I suggest you didn't fight it. You acknowledged it, recognized it. And then, like you said, you were using affirmations. You were being kind to yourself rather than attacking it.
Absolutely.
From what I gather from what you've been doing. I just wanted to pick you up.
Yeah, sure. I think when I'm saying fought it, meaning I accepted it, didn't let the resistance build up inside me. Like I didn't start to fear that I've got an injury and now I won't be able to run. And I did continue my running, but maybe just initially I just calmed down a bit and then resumed things. And I'd find that one of the patterns emerge, which is one of the patterns that we look for, that you don't have the pain whilst you're doing the exercise, but it sets in immediately afterwards. And that's what would happen. And I'd be like, I would be like talking to myself and doing all the affirmations.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I'm on to you. I'm on to you. I know you're trying to protect me, but I would do those affirmations and I would do everything that I need to do, my journaling, try to keep on top of, a small amount of meditation. And to be sure, the pain left me after it took maybe a week or so, and just out of nowhere, just like it came, it just went. So yes,
Yeah.
I do have pain does come and go, but I know how to deal with it without.
So it's about not going into the fear, recognizing it as a signal that there's something that we're not dealing with in our life, and then
Always.
to deal with that as well as using. And I think it's important to say that this is not just about using techniques. This is about a deep understanding and acceptance of this, and looking at our lives as well. So not pushing through and ignoring what's happening, but actually dealing with stuff. And then, yes, the techniques, tools, strategies, practices, whatever we want to call them, can be beneficial. But the other thing is that if we are looking after ourselves more with this understanding, we actually do then look after ourselves more, because that means that it helps us boost our resilience as well, doesn't it? So that we're less likely to be triggered.
You are so right, because I was famous at self-neglect, and I have learned to be kind to myself. I didn't even know what that meant. You know, I didn't know what self-compassion was or self-kindness, let alone self-forgiveness. So now I am easier on myself. And as the children are growing up, you know, even my older two say, "Oh, you were so strict with us. You know, you'd never sort of break any of the rules." Yeah, I was over the top with the older two, bless them, and with the younger two, it's like they get away with everything. They don't get away with everything. I'm just trying to be more, accepting. So I have learned to deal with things so that I don't create that resistance. Let things go that I don't need to hold on to. More looking after myself. And also, I think it's important to mention here that sometimes if I do get a symptom, I can immediately recognize, oh, I know what it is. I've been going through this stressful period, and I will journal. And sometimes, it might take a few days. Things will settle. Other times, I don't worry. I don't overanalyze. I don't question why. What is it? Because that doesn't serve any purpose. No, it doesn't matter. You just need to do the work. Be kind to yourself. Take some time out.
Feel the emotions.
That's it. Your body just asking for some time out. Yeah, just go easy on you. Just go easy on yourself, and then do the tools that you resonate with, and you will then see the relief.
Absolutely. So, looking at some of these questions, well, one, Peter says, "Where are you based?" Well, we're both West Yorkshire, aren't we? And so's later on, so's Liz. We're really Yorkshire biased here. On this call.
I'm sure you can tell by my accent, I'm Yorkshire based.
So yes, you're near Leeds, aren't you, Shaheen?
Yes, I'm in Leeds, North Leeds.
Yeah. So, and Liz says, so great and interesting to hear you talk about really feeling the positive emotions and how they helped you with your recovery, as well as recognizing and processing sadness, fear, and grief.
Yeah, so, definitely. Yeah, the emotional part was that was huge for me.
Yeah. And then Peter says, will you be reaching out to your community in some way? So Peter's one of our practitioners as well, going through the training. And he says, as a GP, so many Asian ladies complain of back pain and need to be more active. The same goes for many white ladies. And this brings me on to something interesting, actually, that I was talking to, I don't know which group of practitioners we were talking about with. But when I moved to Yorkshire, and when I had my kids, I went into the community. And I was working in Bradford. There's a high number of Asian community in Bradford. And I'd been told that Asian women have a low pain threshold. And then I was seeing so many Asian women in pain, and I thought, oh yes, they got a low pain threshold. But then when I started looking at it and then understand, even before I came across this work, and I was treating people, mainly when I left the NHS and had more time, and I began to hear their backstories. And, many of the older generation, sort of older than even me, but, the older generation who were, and probably still now, who were being brought over as young brides without speaking the language at about 16. Certainly one lady I'm thinking of, she came over at 16, couldn't speak English, then had to look after not only her husband, but her in-laws. Then she had 3 children. Husband would go to work and come back and just sit down and not do anything. And no family support, no mother, no family support as she was going through this. And that's when I began to realize, well, no wonder they have pain. It's nothing to do with the pain threshold.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yes, of course, being active is important as well, but a lot of them have had a lot of trauma in the past as well.
Yeah, definitely, Georgie. I certainly believe that they could benefit with what we teach. However, I have tried to reach out, and what I have found in my experience, sadly, is that They are very, very much into whatever the doctor says, that is set in stone, and those ideas and beliefs are really ingrained in them. I know they are in lots of people, but particularly in the Asian community, they put a huge amount of confidence in what doctors tell them, and they are really good at running to doctors with their pain issues. And if I, in the past, I have tried to reach out to some of them, it just falls on deaf ears. It's almost like I'm a bit mental with what I'm suggesting, or that I'm suggesting that it's in their head. All the things that we have to sort of deal with, where people feel that maybe we're belittling their pain or we're not believing them. So I find sometimes it's just too much effort. They need to approach, those that approach me understanding what I do, there's more chance of a high level of success to be derived from that.
And certainly I found that it's the next generation that are much more open, but that's whatever culture, I think that's probably the case anyway. And then, as Peter says, it seems hard for them to speak out, perhaps due to the male domination in the community. I think there are very few, but there are a number of cultures where that is the case, where women aren't able to speak out as much. And I'm sure that absolutely they're going to be repressing more with that as well. And then Nicole says it's a real challenge for many people to accept this diagnosis and treatment. Absolutely. But sowing seeds is the most important thing, and not trying to convince people, because you get people's backs up. It just doesn't work. It's about sowing seeds.
Absolutely. I mean, I found in my experience of, like discussing it with wider family and friends, some have been open to it, and some have indeed gone on to, buy the book, look into it, and have recovered from chronic pain, perhaps that, they were suffering from, and others, they will not be open to it no matter what. And I've just learned to just back off now, because you can't help everyone as much as you'd love to. Even you try to convince them, look, I was almost like a cripple, but it doesn't matter. They will believe what they will believe. But however, can you hear me, Georgie?
Yes. Oh, but she has frozen. Oh, you're frozen now. But yeah, carry on again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just going to say that, however, all my 4 children, sort of subscribe to the mind-body connection, because, well, call it brainwashing, call it mum doing their head in, whatever you want to call it.
Just learning from you.
They have all at some point benefited from what I've taught them, and I'm really pleased that they have, that they can, go on and hopefully avert like pain in the future or other mind-body connection just from knowing. And at some point, I know that they will fall back on this. I just remember a little story to tell you. Miriam, who's now 13, when she was about 6 years old or 5 years old, she fractured both her wrists, fell off a climbing frame in a playground.
Gosh.
And then a few years later, obviously she fully recovered. She came to me one day and she said that, oh, Mama, I've got really bad pain in my wrist. And I think she must have been about 9. And I said, oh, let me have a look. She goes, I think I need to go to doctors. And remember, I broke that bone in that wrist. So maybe it's, the breakage just come back. She was really worried. And then I obviously knew about this work, and I started to speak to her about, well, look, what we do, what's going on. Are you worried about something? And then as it happened, she was worried about something at school with some girlfriends at school. And I showed her how to journal, and she couldn't journal because of her wrist hurting. And I said, you type it up on your iPad. And she was so cute, because she went off and she typed up whatever was going on in her little head about all her little worries with her friends. And then she came to me, she said, I've done it, can you read it now? And I said, oh, no, I don't need to read it. You just delete it. And that's going to be a really good release for you. And the next day, she forgot all about the pain. And I remembered after school, I said, oh, by the way, Miriam, how's your wrist pain? And she went, oh, yeah, it's okay today, Mama.
And they learn from that. They learn from their experiences, because they're learning from us. And certainly my 2 are 100% on board. Yeah, so we've got another question. It's a good story, though. Christine says, does the program help you identify what your issues could be? Is it possible that you can have chronic back and neck pain without any obvious trauma? Absolutely. And with, there are many people who've had no trauma in the past at all. But remember, our personality plays such a part in all this as well. As you said, Shaheen, that being hard on yourself, and when we're perfectionists, overly conscientious, and putting everybody else before us, that's enough to actually cause stress for ourselves. And
Very
it's about
huge, yeah.
being triggered if we are, and often we miss the subtle clues that maybe we've got too much going on. The little whispers that our body gives us, the odd ache or pain, and we ignore them, we push through and carry on, because maybe actually being busy has just become normal for us, or being that level of stress is normal for us, and that's when the body will start shouting at us. So we don't have to have trauma, but we also do learn from our parents as well. So, you know, our childhood. So we might learn, if we've got an anxious mother, we might learn to be anxious and a worrier from her, for example. Or maybe we learn to be a goodist and perfectionist, overly conscientious, because maybe we've got, I don't know, we're very shy, and then maybe the dad's got a big loud voice or something, but that actually doesn't impact your siblings, but it does on you. And that means that you'd grow up sort of trying to avoid that confrontation from him by being good and being overly conscientious perfectionist, which then causes pressure in later life. So it's not all about trauma, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
What would you say, Shaheen?
No, you're right. It's not, Georgie. And some of the clients that I've helped, they certainly haven't, you know, had like issues of huge, you know, episodes of trauma, but they have had things that they didn't realize was over the years had caused pressure upon them. And like you say, it's just those small everyday things that you're running around doing, and you combined with lack of self-care, you know, immersing yourself in distractions like that you don't realize, always being on social media, or maybe you're drinking a bit too much, maybe you're turning to cigarettes, or you're watching too much TV, whatever it is. But you know, you're not doing like the healthy self-care, and you're avoiding your emotions because you just keep gravitating towards these distractions. And the more we do that, and the more we are avoiding that sort of attending to our emotions, of course, it does build up. It does build up, and then those small stresses, they are first sent to small messages, maybe a headache here, or a little bit of eczema there, or some tummy upset. But people tend to accept these as, oh, I'm just not feeling well today, I've got a tummy ache. But these are signals from within, and then you get the big stuff coming through. So I
would feel like it's an emotional pressure cooker that we just bottle it up, or avoid it. We don't notice. So much of our attention is on what's going on out there, and we're not, like you said, you know. Then when you had, let's say, pain after you had a cesarean, you blamed it on the injection rather than thinking maybe there was something else going on. I used to open our garage door, and every now and again my neck would go. I never questioned why that day, not any other day, had it gone. It would have to be that garage door.
Yeah, it's very true, isn't it? It's like when you're on holiday, you don't think, well, why am I not in pain now? Or, you know, you might just, any activity you might be doing, you don't question why are there periods of pain relief, you know, from your symptoms. You just don't even think there's an explanation behind that pattern. You just associate with the fact that you've got an injury, and that's it, and that's the way it works. So it is important for us to look at those patterns and look at those anomalies and realize that, well, if you've got a real structural problem, you wouldn't see those anomalies. There would be pain there pretty much, you know, constant, and it wouldn't be moving around the body as well. And that used to happen to me, shift from one side to the next and different levels of intensity.
Yes, that often happens. Yeah. And as Beverly says, it's amazing how we start accepting these things as the norm. You know, being busy, or just, you know, having the odd headache, having whatever, is just, well, everybody does. What's wrong? But when you really start understanding it, and you begin with, you know, if I start with a headache, I know, in fact, last weekend I didn't know I had a headache till I bent over, and then I suddenly felt this tension in my head. That was the point I worked on it. I didn't, I mean, if I was perfect, obviously I wouldn't have got to that point, but who's perfect, and with all that's going on at the moment anyway. But it made me actually then look at, okay, so even though if it was just, I remember just having a really quiet day, being kind to myself. I did a bit of journaling, but, you know, that only a little bit, and more about emotional awareness, acknowledging how I felt, and just taking time out for me, rather than, because I, you know, yes, I thought quite for a little bit, okay, what's going on? There wasn't anything specific really. And I think, you know, it's just this gradual build up of getting to the end of lockdown. When are we going to see family? When are we going to be able to do this, that, or the other? And it's about then really about being kind to ourselves. And if we begin to see how we create so much self-induced stress, then by dealing with that, we're going to be removing so much of that fuel for either the symptoms that maybe we have, or actually the triggering of symptoms.
Very, very true. I mean, I think it's very, once you understand how you can just, prevent a small headache from escalating to like a really lingering headache, it's just so powerful. I mean, I can get small pain, just niggling pain, and then just do some affirmations, not fear it, understand, not specifically where it's coming from, but understand that it's a form of protective mechanism, but it's not, there's nothing wrong with me. And then just go about my day, and I don't worry. And within hours, sometimes within a matter of a few hours, the pain's gone, and it's powerful. You can get rid of your pain. So it's really.
And the more emotionally aware we are, the more we can start either nipping things in the bud, or even getting to that point of overwhelm or a symptom. And certainly, as soon as you feel your buttons have been pressed, or that you're feeling an emotion or a symptom comes on or changes, to be able to just pause and actually slow your breathing down and just notice in your body how you're feeling, what's going, not in your head trying to work out what's going on, but actually pause, breathe, feel. And then you're reassuring your primal brain that you're safe, everything's okay, it was a false alarm, you don't need to, and allow that emotion to process through rather than being avoided because we're just too busy to deal with it. It can take a minute or two, can't it?
Yeah.
And each time you're doing it, you're reprogramming your brain to recognize that it's okay, I'm safe.
Yes, and that's why it doesn't make sense when people say, oh, I'm too busy to do that, oh, I'm too stressed, I'm too busy. It takes a minute.
You can do it in the day, yes.
So just slow your breathing down, just feel grounded, and it feels good, and it can give you clarity of thought, re-energize, just a few minutes. You might spend those few minutes on something else, but it's going to really recharge you. Just give yourself those few minutes. It feels good, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're coming towards the end now anyway. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for the questions and things. And thank you so much, Shaheen. I think you've got a remarkable story, and I do know that that's going to help so many people hearing your story and to see how things have changed so much. And as Peter was saying, how you're passing it on to your children. And I think it's important for all of us to really start demonstrating. First of all, you demonstrated your own progress to your kids, and then you're being able to help them learn as they're getting older as well. And I think that's so important, and it will be easier for the next generation. So thank you very much, Shaheen.
Thank you for having me
as a practitioner as well, because you can see just how passionate you are and how successful you've been as well. And they can, they can go to your website, can't they? Do you want to tell them what your website is?
Yes, my website is painfreewithshaheen.com. So yeah, feel free to. There's lots of information on there if you just want to have a.
Lots of good resources on there. Yeah. Fantastic. Lovely. Okay, well, nice to see you, everybody. Everybody's saying thank you for the story, Shaheen.
Thank you.
And we'll finish there, and we'll be back. Actually, it'll probably be in 3 weeks now, seeing as we're a week late due to the technical problems last week. But we'll be back for our Q&A with a practitioner. It'll be Zoe and myself next Thursday. Okay, take care, all the best, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.